Hi there, welcome back to Creatively Crafted Life. My name is Melanie and this is another Smash Your Stash. And I think this is the first time where we have ever smashed a mixed media product like paste or gels or glitter, you know, anything paste-like. If you have been watching my channel recently, we have talked about, Nikki and I from Nikki's Scrapbooking Adventures have talked about using more mixed media items in our stash, and one of the items we talked about was using paste, which just lends itself really great for this month. So everything is aligned for me to be creative with paste. Now, one of the reasons why I am focusing on that is because a lot of mixed media products have a shelf life. So when I went to go pull out paste for this, I pulled out my favorite paste, which is this Dreamweaver stencil embossing paste. I don't know if you can get this anymore. This was probably close to 20 years old and was really good up until the last time I used it, and I did not seal it properly. So this was my fault. And the reason why I say that it was my fault is because I have some gold paste, which I'm going to show you here in a bit, on some of the papers that I made, and it's still good as brand new. So sad about this one. Now on the plus side, it was, you know, mostly used up. So it wasn't at least a completely full jar, so that was good. But I did have things like this Stamperia mixed media paste, you know, pretty much a full jar. And why I had so many jars open, I can't speak to that. But this was basically pretty much a done deal. So I only paid $2 for this. It was a clearance item, so my guess is it probably was old to start off with. I also had this Shimmers Paints Pasties, almost used up, so close, but it is also quite done at this point. So that's being removed from my stash. So I guess you could say I did a little cleanup at the same time. I was disappointed in this one. This was Texture Paste Opaque Matte. This is from Ranger. It was one of their samplers. Yeah, it's hard as rock. So a little bit disappointed in that. But I would say the size is great if you're going to get into this kind of thing, I think. Although maybe the size contributed to drying it out faster. I'm not sure. But as far as like if you're not big into it, it's probably the right size. Now I also had a partially used up jar of grit paste, which still was good, and I have now used that one up. It was starting to dry out, and so I made it a point to use it up, which is why you're going to see a lot of the things I made this month using this particular paste. I also did a bunch of these on watercolor cardstock, and I actually used up a pad, finished using that up, so yay me. And I used a variety of stencils, so I'm very pleased overall with what I used for my stash, but as in what did I actually make, let's have a look at that. So first of all, I didn't complete anything. I really was focusing more on just getting the paste down and into either a book or on some layouts. And then the idea being that they'll be in my stash. I can pull them out when I'm ready to do the next step, which may be this month, maybe not. I am trying to focus on mixed media this month, but you know, we'll see how it goes. So I'm going to apologize if these don't come up too clearly, because a lot of them are going to be white on white, and I did that intentionally to give me a lot of options when I go to do the layouts. This is my Dina Wakley art journal, and I did do this coneflower in the bottom corner. I really love this image. This is a Donna Downey, I think, stencil. It's beautiful. I also did a scrapbook layout with this, which I'll show you here in a minute, or at least the start of a scrapbook layout. And then the other one I did was just this kind of random triangular pattern. The stencil itself would have covered this completely, but I chose to do a bit of mix and match. Now, this paper is very porous, as you can see. It does come through. So what I will probably end up doing, because I did not prep this at all, is I will probably apply a layer of gesso on top of this. Is what I'm thinking, to help avoid some bleed through into the next page. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens. But those are the two I started or put in my art journal page as kind of a start. Call it an art start. I also went to some of my specialty scrap bin, and I had these little silver 3x4 cards, and I used this particular stencil. Now it did have some seepage in here. I'm not too concerned about that because I'm probably going to add some sort of embellishment or focal point on top of here, and I think I should be able to cover that up. So I made 3 of those. These are going to go in my card start or card base bin. Also going in that bin are these ones that I made on this kind of silk shimmer paper. I added these hearts. I think these would make a really cute either wedding page or Valentine's cards, and I made 3 of those as well. You'll notice that the texture paste is kind of very textured. I didn't get a very smooth finish on that, and that again was partly because the paste was starting to dry out. In the conversation I had with Nikki where we talked about paste, I was saying how you might be able to emboss on acetate, so I thought I'd give that a try just to see. The tricky part with acetate, no matter what medium you're using, is that you're going to get some slippage probably because acetate's very slippery. I did get some of that in here. You can see around this image, so I'm not sure what I could do differently. Maybe apply some sort of tacky spray to help hold it down a little bit. But this was just a scrap piece of acetate. I thought I'd give it a try. You'll see it is bound or bonded pretty well with that. It's not coming off, so something to think about, maybe experiment a little bit more in the future. I recently took a collage course, an online collage course, and one of the things that the instructor talked about was adding embossing paste to tissue paper, and that this is an easy way to add texture without having to worry too much about it, because when you start applying embossing medium on top of this, the tissue paper kind of melts into the background and you're left with the embossing paste. I also think this would be quite fun as a layering piece on a scrapbook layout, especially if you like texture. If you follow Missy Whidden, you know one of her standard layering pieces, or at least it used to be, was tissue paper. So I made a few sheets of that with this dot, and I also used gold. This is that Dreamweaver gold embossing paste that I was telling you about. It's probably about 20 years old, still works perfectly well. I really like this as well for some collage medium. And then I had larger dot stencil that I thought would be kind of fun. These can either be trimmed out and used as embellishments on their own or as a layering piece. Okay, I hope you can see these. I'll try and tilt the light so maybe you can see. There you go. So I have these stencils that are really for home decor. I got them at Tuesday morning, and they were pineapples, and I recently made a trip to Hawaii, so I'm thinking that these might be fun embellishments. I will probably add sprays or some other medium on top to color them and then trim them out so that they'll become an embellishment. Okay, now we get into the background papers. These are all done on Prima 12x12 watercolor cardstock or watercolor paper. A lot of the stencils I have are 8.5 by 11, so they don't cover the whole page, and I'm okay with that. So again, I'm just going to tilt this so you can see this geometric design, and I purposely did it more towards the left hand side just to give me, you know, some blank space here, just a little bit of place for you to rest your eye. Something like this I may just leave as white, just as texture in the background without adding any color, but you know, time will tell. This one here is that coneflower again. I purposely did it in a color. I could see me doing a full watercolor background, maybe in a soft blue, just to make this image pop up, and maybe a wash of like a light browny yellow on the center, and maybe a light wash of green on the stem, and then leave the petals as is. But again, I'm leaving this open for the right opportunity. I also had this stencil full of butterflies. It was from Carabelle Studio. I think that's a French company that has a lot of mixed media product. This was another kind of 8.5 by 11 sheet, and I didn't want it to go straight up and down, so I tried to make it look like it was coming from the bottom of the page up. And again, probably add like a photo or something down here at the bottom, maybe a title up here or over here. I did have some seepage on this one as well. So you can see I tried to scrape it up as much as possible, and that was just me being lazy. I didn't adhere the stencil properly before I was running this through. You'll probably notice if I add color on there, you'll notice that that has that seepage, but I'm not too worried about it. Worst case scenario, I can always trim this down to a smaller piece and then mount it on some cardstock. Similar to what I did in the art journal, I took that triangle stencil and I just sporadically did pockets of that. How this is going to end up, where this is going to, you know, be, I'm not sure. We'll find out. And then also from I think it's American Crafts, it's their home decor line. They had some really large 12 by 12 stencils, with the idea being that you would paint these on a wall or some sort of decor piece. And they had these kind of wonky, they call them iCat circles, and you could do a repeat pattern. I chose to just have these in the center and leave it as is. I probably will end up trimming this down and then mounting it so that I don't have quite a big border, but you never know. We'll see what happens. And then the last layout that I did was when I was starting to run out of the texture paste. And so I used the Ranger Gloss, and it's got a very different texture than the texture paste. It's really smooth and really you almost can't see the texture in here at all. If I flip it in the light, you can see how there is patterns on there. Again, the idea is that you could match this up, align it, and move over, but I opted to leave it just as is. The only thing I probably would have done a little bit different if I had thought about it is maybe extended this down here. But to be honest, I probably will just end up trimming this out if I like it, right? This one is probably the iffiest one of them all. The gloss paste is probably going to resist the color. The texture paste should pick it up. But I did get some overlap or some seepage with the gloss paste, and so I don't know, it may look terrible, in which case we'll just call it a learning opportunity. So that is what I have done for this month's challenge. I am very happy to have these done. I think this is going to be an aid in getting me one step closer to actually using these supplies. Obviously, I have used them. It's just now getting them into a final project. I find with mixed media, because it's quite time consuming, that I think this might be the method I have to go, is where basically I just have a play session, create a bunch, let them dry, have them in my stash ready to go, and then when I'm ready to do the next thing, it's one less step to do at that point. I hope that makes sense. Before I sign off, I just want to remind you that this is a collaboration hosted by Beth over on Bourbon Creek's Crafts. This is a hashtag collaboration, meaning if you would like to see what everybody else was up to, please click on the hashtag either in the description or in the title and check out what everyone else did this month using the different pastes that they have in their stash. Thanks so much for hanging out with me, and until next time, happy crafting.